We are talking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Full spoilers. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Full spoilers for this movie. If you have not seen this movie, do the whole spiel. Pause it. Whatever you want to do to go see this movie, go do it before you listen to us. Full spoilers. You have been warned. So let's get into it real quickly. Directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, who directed Voltron and The Legend of Korra. Kemp Powers, who was co-director on Soul, and Justin K. Thompson. Sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting for a second. Who are the three directors for this one. And then it was written by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, with Dave Callaham, who wrote Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Mortal Kombat, Wonder Woman 1984, Doom. Got quite the...
What was the last one you said? Doom. 2005's Doom?
Yes.
Man, he's really had enough swing.
Yeah, so he's a co-writer on this one. So, okay, so let's get right into it. What do we think? Ben, you want to go first?
Sure.
All right, I'll go.
No. I want to start immediately hit the ground running with what I want to rate this movie, but I absolutely love it. When people have been saying that this is like the absolute best Spider-Man film ever made thus far, there was no hyperbole there. I cannot praise this movie enough on how beautiful it is, on how the story hits you like in the gut. There's a lot of great emotional beats, and there's a lot of things like, yeah, this is Miles' story, but other characters get the spotlight, specifically Gwen Stacy. This is one of those things where this is truly a comic book film where I feel like I'm looking at a comic book and the pages are coming to life before me on screen. I absolutely adore this movie. There's a reason why I'm putting this as of right now, it's number 2 on my top 10. Zelda ekes it out just a bit, but holy crap. Across the Spider-Verse is absolutely amazing. I would absolutely love to go see it again. This is fantastic.
Sparkz or Ryan?
Yeah, this movie's really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. No, there's a lot of hyperbole you can throw around, but this really is a special movie. Just like the first one, but able to build on it and not only include so many more animation styles and so many more characters and have it all balanced out so well, and improving on the animation and the scope of the movie while it still feels grounded in character, because it always comes down to character no matter how big your movie gets. It was really I'm really shocked that they really pulled it off, and to know that we're getting another one that will cement this as probably one of the greatest trilogies I've ever made. I want to throw around a lot of hyperbole, but I don't need to, because we all saw the movie.
Right. Sparkz?
It's spectacular Spider-Man. I loved it. I laughed. I cried. I I had a great time. It's really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. I only have one issue with it that I can't get over. I was hoping to see it again, to see if I could, but as it stands right now, I just only have the one issue. But other than that, yeah, great movie. So let's dive in. Where do we want to start?
I guess we'll start with your one issue.
Oh, I just don't think it's as tightly paced as the first film. I felt the first film, having watched them back to back, the first film is very tight. It's paced well. It moves. It breathes. This one, I think, breathed too much in certain points. Now, mind you, I don't know what I'd cut. Probably nothing. I think everything in here services the story and is really good. I just don't think it's as tight as the first one. That's really
I'll tell you what. Oh, sorry, Ben. I see you're going to talk about it.
No, I actually kind of agree with that. I do agree that it isn't as tightly paced, because when I saw the runtime for this movie, I was very surprised. But the Spider-Verse is also a 2-hour-long movie, and it works. Or the first Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse is tightly paced for a 2.5-hour flick. You don't really feel the runtime. Oddly enough, I do remember feeling the runtime a bit in this movie, but I wasn't annoyed. Because there are times where you feel the runtime of a film, and you just go, "Oh God, when is this going to end?" But this one is like, okay. But with this one, I'm watching it, and there's a point in the movie where I'm like, okay, I've been sitting here for a while now. I wonder if we're getting to the end point, but at the same time, I don't want it to end.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying making it longer would have improved it. I am agreeing with Brandon that it's not. I mean, there are maybe a few pacing issues, but at the same time, those pacing issues didn't really take me out of the film, but I do acknowledge that they're there. And also, I agree. I don't know what to cut, to be perfectly honest.
I'll tell you, I also, and I compared it to Return of the King, the Sparkz, after I saw it. But I don't have a problem with the pacing until the end of the movie. The last 20 minutes for me feels like, and this isn't a negative, like I think all of it's great, but it's like it feels like it's kind of dragging its feet to get to the big reveal. Like the last 20 minutes, once Miles kind of put back where he is, it takes a long time, and a lot of like, we're revisiting this character where they ended, we're revisiting this character. And for like 3 separate times I thought the movie was gonna end, but it kept going. And again, none of it's bad. I'm just like, man, I thought this movie was gonna end like 3 separate times. And I like the cliffhanger that we do leave on, but I thought there was 3 separate cliffhangers that we were gonna be left on. So like I agree, but I don't particularly like. It's not like it still looks better than any movie I've ever seen in my life. So like I can't complain too hard, you know, kind of thing.
I'll jump in on that and say that I agree a bit with Ryan about like the endings, the ending of the movie and where that falls. I don't have a problem with the pacing in the sense that like I recognize that it is not as tightly paced as the first one. I give it some leeway, I guess, because the first one is telling a singular story and this is telling a part 1 story. I know it's not called part 1, but we know it. We know it's a part 1 story. And to me, it feels like part of the reason they decided to go for a part 1, part 2 is because they decided that a lot of the character beats we spend a lot of time with in the early half of this movie, especially like the fact how long it takes for us to actually roll into what the story is about is pretty surprising.
It's a long time
for an average film.
Yeah.
But I do think the point of it is that all of those things had to be there or the next movie's not going to hit.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't know that for a fact, but I'm suspecting that's the case. Is that like, and I kind of appreciate it because like rewatching Into the Spider-Verse, one thing okay, thanks, Emma. One thing that does, Jesus, she just threw my iPad on the floor. One thing that really does like jump out to me as like I wanted more of is specifically Miles' mom. I'll say in Into the Spider-Verse. It's a very father-son story. It's a very masculine focused story. That's not a problem, but it is something that when we come to this film, I did want more of that presence. And I would say this is a very much like more balanced film, certainly giving in more of a female perspective because it's not just his mom, but also Gwen. And you get so much more of that in the front half of this film, which I think is important and is important for the character arcs of Miles, but also those other characters around him for where we're going and for what this movie's saying it's doing. So for me, it all kind of evens out as like, yeah, this is not paced like your usual film would be. It's paced like a part 1. But for me, it works. I'm kind of jiving with it. Like the fact that we did spend as much time as we did with Gwen before we even hit a title card honestly amazed me. And I was just enthralled with it.
Nothing makes me happier than a late title card. Oh my God.
Yeah. Especially after that scene, like that entire sequence of Gwen, and you see like where she hides her own police radio and where she hides her costume and everything, like in the drum set, and even just the opening where she's playing the drums and narrating it, and the drum beat just constantly gets faster and faster and more aggressive, and it's just like 10 seconds, or not 10 seconds, 10 minutes in, especially when we get her dressed up, and I love the ballet shoes. And when she goes out to fight the Vulture, I'm just like, this is like the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen. And
you mean
like
Shakespeare?
10, 15.
Shakespeare Vulture.
Yeah.
So
Shakespeare Vulture.
I just want to put a capper on my thoughts on the pacing thing before I move on to what is my favorite part of the movie, which is that I agree with what all of you were saying, but I also kind of disagree because, like, as Ben said, I did feel the length of the film, which is not something I can say about a lot of films, especially animated movies, which is why I wanted to see it again, because now that I know kind of the pacing of the film, would I be more prepared for it? Maybe I wasn't exactly prepared for it in the beginning. But as Ryan said, what's very important is that you never want, and Ben said a little bit, you never want the movie to end because it's so pretty to look at. No matter what you're looking at, no matter what the pacing is, you're looking at a work of art. And that's what this movie is, quite frankly. Now, Ben, sorry to go into it, so if it's okay, I want to talk about the opening scene with Gwen.
Yeah.
Because that's my favorite part of the movie. Not a slight on the rest of the movie. But I really like Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen. A Spider-Woman, Ghost Spider, whatever her name is to this day of the week. I've read all of her books. I bought her stupid miniseries. because she doesn't have a current ongoing right now, and that pisses me off.
I sold her number 1 for $250 to help me pay rent.
There you go. I still have my number 1. And so like I love her book. I love the art style of the first series before Ghost Spider. And so like seeing that book literally come to life on screen with the art style of her world very reminiscent of the art style in that comic, and her relationship with Captain Stacy, and everything, like it was just so special to me. Like that made me excited when I heard the Spider-Woman news. I'm like, yes, if it's anything like that 20 minutes, I'm 100% on board.
Well, and I think, it's going to come up a lot in this film, but the commitment to, the different animation styles of the characters from the first movie had always been like cool, but now we're going to their worlds and playing with different animation and not looking the same and giving this new look each time that we're passing into these new worlds, I think is really special. And Gwen's is a hell of a way to start it, especially with the overlaying panels of her doing the drums as she's thinking about all this stuff. And I really like the opening monologue we're getting mixed in with it of why I think this movie kind of gets away with its part oneness a little better is because like this is very much a part one of Miles' story, right? This is a full arc for Gwen though. Gwen is starting the film telling us that, she feels like she hurt Miles in a way she can't make up for. And the whole movie is us getting to that point and what she's going to do about it, what decision she's going to make to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that if you argued like this movie's like through line, that is the through line. And then Miles has a through line through the two movies. But like Gwen has a through line for this movie. And I think that was why it was so smart to focus on her, start with her, give her that point where we know we're heading to something bad happening between the two of them. And then getting there and also giving us like, it's one of the reasons I don't mind the ending kind of going to the length it does, because it's the two things that are very right about like what they do with Gwen at the end is her conversation with Miles' parents and her showing the decision of her like getting the gang together because they're going to go help Miles. And that gives it a full circle whole thing. So I really, really love the choice. Starting on her was just so smart.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned the Mary Janes and her kind of going through the drums, just going through her history. What I really love about that is, then this is a little selfish, I'll fully admit. In the first film, Into the Spider-Verse, I actually just re-listened to this part in the review, fun fact, where I mentioned, I was like, I know there's no room for it in Into the Spider-Verse, but I do wish that we had more about Gwen's history because she's dealing with a Peter Parker who's not her own. And how would that affect her? We don't really see that effect in that movie. And then we do in this movie. And so that was really exciting for me because I'm like, oh, they're doing it. And Jack Quaid plays her Peter, which is cute. We see that version of the lizard, which is really cool, a really cool design for the lizard. And that whole event play out that led to Peter's death. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just the comic. You're just the backstory. Someone put this really well on a tweet. So the backstory of this movie is comic books.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
And this movie never never fails, like Ben said, like it's like you're watching a comic book. Like it never fails to, like, in between like transitions, like when we're going to the next chapter, of like throwing down a comic book with the cover that they're gonna, like the movie is referencing, right? It is really, really cool. Like,
and I just want to respond to what Brandon was saying. So real quick, like to Brandon's point of what he's saying, Into the Spider-Verse not going into that a lot, right? That's part of what kept that movie so tight. That was Miles' story. It was focused on Miles. It was focused on Miles' world. It's a very clear and very good story. It's a tight story. It's excellent. They tell it very well. It feels like there was an active decision because they knew they were giving themselves the room of two films, that they made a decision of, does this make the character richer if we leave it? Then we leave it. And so allowing moments to last and to languish and to live makes it feel like so many more people, while we are thrown so many things in this movie, I feel so deeply connected to so many different characters in a way that, especially in an anime film, but in general, I don't think you get a lot when films throw this many characters at you.
it's impressive. Yeah.
I was gonna extrapolate on Ryan's point about the whole comic book thing. I love it when you have comic book like reference, or not like references from comic books, but things you see in comic books, like the little editor's boxes that are sprinkled throughout the
Love
movie.
those.
Love it.
Like the second excuse me, not well, it's Oscar Isaac, but he's playing Miguel O'Hara. When Miguel says he has hammer space, and there's a little box that explains what hammer space is. I didn't read the whole thing because I was like, oh shit, just like trying to watch the action and read what was said. But all the other like little bits, like when a character, I forget, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't there times when a character is thinking to themselves and it pops up as text in the text boxes?
Yeah, they do it in the
that
first
happened.
movie.
That happened in the first movie too.
I just love it when they do that, because
Yeah.
to me it's just like it, when the writers and the creators, like the entire team who made this film, when they were making this, they never, like you said, Brandon, whoever made that tweet, the backbone is comic books. When they were making this movie, they never strayed like, this is a comic book movie, let's make it a legit comic book turned film.
You're absolutely correct, but I do want to correct. I didn't say backbone. I said the backstory for much of the characters of this movie is just straight from the comic books.
Yeah, when that first editor's box popped up, we got a pretty good reaction in our theater.
Mm-hmm.
So
the
comic fans for sure.
When the Comics Code Authority popped up, my theater erupted in applause.
I laughed. No one else did. I'm like, oh, I just love that little approved by the Comics Code Authority.
Yeah,
it's a good bit.
Yeah, the first like 20 minutes being kind of like this is my story, but instead of it being the 30-second version, it's like a 20-minute short story, and it's awesome. And like Gwen's whole like monologue with the drums, but like there's so much more visually happening in this movie than the last movie, and that movie already had so much going on. But like as you see Gwen traveling, she's constantly seeing Miles in reflections. She is constantly being reflected as Ghost Spider, whether it's half or full. Anytime like a train door opens, she transforms into a character, or vice versa. Like this is like the busiest movie ever made. Like we see so many movies, guys. I'm just like, not that movies are ever like phoned in, but I'm just like, this movie specifically, like I see the 5 years that went into this movie. Like it is truly like God bless art. Like AI could never do this ever. That's why I'm not worried about AI, because like we got this shit. Look at this.
Highlighting on the Gwen stuff, the story choice that I think is so smart, right, is to what would push Gwen to stick with Miguel's agenda, right? And it's this I've lost whatever little I had left in my world because my dad was going to arrest me. And like you can make the argument that like if Gwen had revealed it differently at a different time, but like she certainly thought that if I told him, he wouldn't be hunting Spider-Woman. But I'm afraid that if I do, he'll react the way that he does in the initial moment. And like it's such a good catalyst for pushing her into this narrative with Miguel, with this protection idea. But also, that part of the reason she goes is because there's some backdoor way I'm going to end up seeing Miles again, which is what she wants to do. But the way that it all comes down on her and what it means, I think is so smart that it starts from that place. And again, like, this being this movie giving her a full arc, that we get to go back and see her with her dad and what that ends up actually being. And that's such a big, like, motivating push for her to be like, I'm going to go fix this.
Yeah. So what's so interesting about that is that she also decides to stay away from her dad because she knows that it's Spider-Man's destiny to lose a captain, a police captain. Right. Mostly it's Captain Stacy. And so her dad is Captain Stacy. So she's thinking to herself that, oh, I'm going to lose my dad.
Right. Dude, the first time they said canon event, I was like, no way. Yeah. Are you kidding me? We're doing this type of shit. Like what is the Nexus event type shit, but like for Spider-Man? Because that's a cool thing. Like, we see the Spider multiverse, but we also see the branches that we see in Loki first before it dives into the spider, like the sub dimension of the Spider Network, right? I'm just like, there's like so much synergy happening. Like whether it's attached to Sony movies, MCU movies, like this movie's weaving a thread through all of it so perfectly in a way that like I just wish all comic movies could be this smart about it.
Can I just say this is the most excited I've ever been seeing the Venomverse. When the Spot shows up in Mrs. Chen's place, I was like, "Oh shit!"
This is just a Tuesday.
That was such a smart cameo choice, was for it to be her and not anybody else from that universe. Because I feel like if it had been Tom Hardy, it would have been like. And this is in general with their cameos, with their Easter eggs. They know just the right amount to give you without like overlaying it. I think let's just like microcosm this real quick. Like the Andrew Garfield appearance, the Tobey Maguire appearance, they don't feel like they're playing to the cheap seats to me.
No.
They feel contextually relevant. We're talking about the times that a captain dies. This is a loss that happens in Spider-Man stories, and one of the times that's happened is Andrew Garfield, and so like that we see it. We talk about Uncle Ben being a focal point, and they don't even like put it. It's not prominent. It's in the background, right? But we see Tobey Maguire with Uncle Ben, and like we know that's what it is. But like again, they're contextualizing. This happens all the time with Uncle Ben and all this kind of stuff. And like, what a smart way to allow those characters to be referenced, to appear. But I didn't feel like it was being ham-fisted with it. No. It was so smart. It was so selective of how it showed it. The Donald Glover cameo is so smart, so selective of how they do it, because like, is it at the MCU one? Who knows? Could be. And like, you can play in that space. You can just live that way with it. Obviously, Yuri Lowenthal and Josh Keaton as Insomniac Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man.
Hell yeah.
Really glad they get their moments to shine. Really excellent. We know there's other Spider-Men coming. You can't tell me that 90s Spider-Man isn't in the next one.
We got 60 we got like 60 Spider-Man for a hot second when he's swinging in, and
no animation. The directors have said like they're saving like y'all. I know there was like 1,000 Spider-Man, but we have plenty more we didn't show.
Oh my god, the Spider-Rex was so great when he just jumps into the air and just flip.
Yeah,
my fiance was dying of laughter when Spider-Rex showed up.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, once Spider-Cat came up and started scratching Miles' face, she was like, Spider-Kitty, because, you know, she loves cats. But with Spider-Rex, even I'm just sitting there going, a mother effing T-Rex is a Spider-Man.
And Sparkz kind of quickly went through them, but I do want to kind of spend a little bit of time on some of these cameos, because Spectacular Spider-Man surprised me, because he's got 2 vocal cameos when we see him. Both times we see him, he says at least a line. Then the second time we see him, he has a really impactful line where they're talking about like, hey, Miles, like you got to accept that these canon events, this is what being Spider-Man is like. This captain is going to die, and they know, and at this point, Miles knows that they're talking about his dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I just,
yeah, we the Spectacular Spider-Man stuff. It's funny because the voice actor Josh Keaton,
Josh Keaton.
He said he did that in April, which is not that long ago, and he wasn't even sure he was in the movie. And then on Twitter, Phil Lord was like, "Don't worry, bro, I got you." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool! I love it."
I love Josh Keaton's inclusion. Feels a lot like Andrew Garfield's inclusion in Spider-Man: No Way Home. That kind of like vindication of like, yeah, we got that. That's the one that needed to be in this.
Yeah, it's like the. I mean, it's more than one person, but this person does it the best. Grant Morrison, they're a person who's like, everything matters. Every single issue came out. It's canon in my book. Just how do you recontextualize it? And it's like, it's a Spider-Man multiverse. Just have every fun Spider-Man. Like, it's a fun animated movie. Like, of course there's a Spider-Man T-Rex. Why not?
But there's one constant. There's one more constant in every multiverse. J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson.
Bro, he showed up multiple times in different. I'm just like, work, sir. Get that money.
That was really fun.
Because he shows up first in the Lego universe.
I loved that bit. Like when the Spot pops into the Daily Bugle Lego set, everyone's like, ah! And then the fact that we even cut back to the Lego universe with Lego Peter Parker.
He just takes off his suit. He's just boop, 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 boop.
You're my best agent, Peter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you're one of our best, Peter.
I was just like, thank you, Lord and Miller, for going back to Lego for this.
Oh, real quickly, did you guys see the ass on Miguel O'Hara?
Yeah, so Chris Anka, who is a very talented comic book designer and artist, he's the new character designer for this movie, and he said that they had to shrink that ass multiple times because he designed it so thick on purpose. So he said, like, I see those thirst tweets about Miguel. Trust me, it was going to be bigger. And I'm like, that's a bisexual character designer for sure.
There is
beefy between the post-credit scene and this one.
He worked out.
I saw that. I was looking at that and I was like, I can't look away. It's everywhere.
Miguel's got it.
What's really funny about, because you mentioned the post-credit scene, what's really funny about the 1967 Spider-Man inclusion is that that's from the post-credit scene. So he actually succeeded in recruiting that guy.
Yeah, of course.
He was the first recruit of this Spider Society.
That's so good.
That post-credit scene, I'm kind of, if I had to get jumping a little.
Don't say it's a negative that we don't have a post-credit scene. Don't say it.
What?
Don't say it's a negative that we don't have a post-credit scene.
Okay, fine. I won't say it then.
I do
Make
like
the movie worse.
I do like where it ends, and the Miles Morales will return in Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse.
I do like that. I guess part of me was just hoping for another fun little snippet, because obviously the post credits from Into the Spider-Verse was hilarious and fun, and even in the Spider Society, I don't know why we're not sick of it. I'm glad we're not sick of it, but it's like
the pointing.
All the Spider-Men pointing at each other. The background for Sparkz and Ryan, their green screen is everyone or just all the Spider-Man just pointing. It just really makes me so happy.
What's really funny about it is it looks like it's Spider-Man Unlimited, just kind of like, hey guys.
Yeah. He's pointing to us.
Yeah.
Mag brings up Neil Patrick Harris Spidey. Hey man, next one. I bet you they're saving some people.
Neil Patrick Harris will cameo in anything, especially if he only has to do a voice.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's in the
MTV Spider-Man. Sure.
And they told us Spider-Man was going to be in this movie when Into the Spider-Verse, and he's not in this movie.
So there's also there's not a lot, but there are a couple frames from the trailer that aren't in this movie, and that they could just be cut, but people are also speculating that they could be from another movie. Because there's like some Prowler stuff, but maybe Spider-Man was there and got cut. He said he's got to be in the next movie.
They did.
Question: who was Andy Samberg? Which Spider-Man was
Ben
Andy
Riley.
Samberg?
Ben Riley.
Oh, next. Okay.
I was gonna say I was about to bring up Ben Riley. I love my boy Ben, but like this is a context where like we pull all kinds of jokes about all Spider-Men.
Yeah.
And so like Ben Riley being done the way he is, I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's fine.
If you're getting he is the 90s joke. I mean, if you want to go even darker, you would do Kane, who's even a more edgy Spider-Man, which how do you get possible because Ben's really edgy. But it is like I do see some Spider fans online who are mad that like Ben's portrayed as Spider. Like, y'all, this ain't Ben's movie. Like, what do you want him to do? Like he is the 90s edgelord. Like this is who he is to a lot of people.
Honestly, I saw some of that Twitter backlash before I saw the movie.
Yeah.
Because we saw it today. And I was like, man, how bad is it? And like I went in and I'm like, this is fine. This is no more than like we kind of give our jabbing teardowns of any other Spider character in this universe. Like
absolutely.
This is fine. This is not egregiously like shitting on this character. I don't know why Ben Riley fans are freaking out. I don't think they need to.
I get it because specifically like the last couple of years, like right now Ben is Chasm, like he's a super villain. So like Ben really hasn't had the best luck the last couple of years.
No.
And like this is the first time in not live action, in like big movie form, we're seeing Ben Riley and he's relocated to a joke. So I get it, but y'all can settle down.
Right. He looks great. I love the design. The way
like
Andy
CG,
Samberg, the way Andy Samberg goes about the voice kind of reminds me. Those who have watched A Bridge far enough will know what I'm referencing. It's really niche, but when Perfect Cell is making fun of Trunks' very muscular form, and he does a Trunks impression, that's what Andy Samberg sounded like as Ben Riley. Hi, I'm Trunks, and like but it's very appropriate. Like it's being this very emo, edgy sound. That's what Cell's making fun of. That's what it feels like Andy Samberg is reaching into as well.
I think it's fun.
I think it's fun. I don't mind it.
I really like. So this is two things. I want to write this down. I really like how the Peter Parker face has been put on different characters, but each time it looks different and distinctly different. Like you can tell it's not the same Peter Parker.
Right.
It's definitely a line, especially an interesting line that you walk, but I think they walk it really well.
Yeah.
Because when we see Ben Riley, that's the Peter Parker face model, and rightfully it should be, but it looks distinctly different enough where we're like, oh right, that's not Peter Parker, that's Ben Riley.
Right.
Blonde hair.
Yeah, and but that kind of goes back to like that's how good they are at differentiating the different universes that we see and all the characters from the different universes that we see. Because we see Bagman and he's 2D. I thought that was cool. But also, Andy Samberg's voice, this could just be a me thing, but one of the things I really like is that Chris Pine, who plays Peter B. Parker? Jake Johnson. Andy Samberg, they all and Jack Quaid, they all kind of have the same cadence as Peter Parker. They're not the same voice, obviously, and you can tell that they're different voices, but they speak in the same kind of way. That kind of like white raspy voice. It's really weird. This is a really weird thing to compliment and kind of notice. But I do kind of feel like that's the case when they cast the Peter Parkers. So I really like that you can tell that vocally they're also the same while not also being the same.
Yeah, it's similar but different.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this movie's good.
Anyway, on the point of all those, because we just went through so many of them, I never felt like anybody was played up for comedy in a way where it was taking away from the larger film or given bits or gags or any of that kind of, like, everything felt appropriately given the space that it should have.
Yeah.
And I think for a movie juggling so much, and for a movie that is running as long as it is and filling up with so many things, that in itself is so impressive.
I was really surprised at how long it took us to get to the Spider Society.
Yeah.
Or whatever they're called in the movie.
Spider Society.
It's a long time. Like we already talked about, it's a long time until we get the title card. But it's just to reinforce, while that might have been a lot of the marketing, that's not what the movie's about. This movie's not about a bunch of Spider cameos. This movie is about Gwen and Miles.
Yeah.
I think
and both of their kind of journeys to, Gwen even says in the beginning of the movie when she's talking to Miles, Gwen Stacy's and Peter and Spider-Man's, she doesn't say Peter Parker, she says Spider-Man's, don't end well.
Yeah.
Kind of reserved to her fate within the canon. But she's different Gwen Stacy than the Gwen Stacy the other spiders know. Miles is different than the other Spider-Mans. Is that kind of like idea that like we need to escape that, because why is it this way? We don't have to follow our predestined destinies, right?
It is.
I really like it. It's cool.
Yeah, the central. First of all, like the Spot is a great fun villain. Like he is the villain of the next movie, like in the grander scheme. But like he kind of relocates to like the first half of the movie, and then Miguel's kind of the villain of the second half. But like the whole premise of this movie being that like we as a Spider Society have to keep all the Ben Parkers dead, and we have to make sure all these people die. We have to stick to the canon because that's all we know. We can't break tradition because we don't know what happens because we think we'll break reality. But it's just like a vicious cycle that they won't even try because it did not work for Miguel. That does not mean it will not work for everyone else, right?
And he's using what happened in Spider-Man India's world, what happened, that kind of like that universe is starting to unravel itself, and Miguel believes it's because
their captain didn't die.
Yeah, they thwarted a canon event.
Well, and also like really important context that he like totally skips over, right? He says canon event being undone is what ruins a universe and gets it destroyed. That's not what he did. He didn't undo it. He took someone else's place. That is a different thing, my guy.
Yeah.
You didn't make it so that Miguel O'Hara there didn't die. You took his place, a person from another universe.
Miguel's the bad guy here, so like easily. Yeah.
But the other thing I like about, to your point of what you're saying, like of this the Spider-Man mythos idea that they're all getting behind, of like some at a certain point you have to accept an amount of loss to be Spider-Man, and that they're all kind of going with this mission. What I like about it is that like it makes sense. You can make an argument for every single one of these characters, how they could have wound up there, especially with so many of them already committed to the idea.
Yes.
But like that kind of guilt and that sense of how Peter Parker and then Peter Parker variants, and then extrapolate further and further until you get down to Miles, right? Before you get to Miles, that all of them kind of take this interpretation of with great power comes great responsibility, and they take that sometimes to put the entire world on them, and that becomes absolute responsibility, which those two things are not the same.
Yes.
Like being responsible with your power also means being responsible to the people you care about. And like that is a balance that Peter is not good at. That's part of who the character is. So what I like about it is that it's driving from that point with all these characters to do something that's so generationally true right now, and have all of these spider people say, well, we all had to lose something, so you have to lose something too, Miles.
Absolutely.
We couldn't have it good, so you can't have it good either. And that, even though those characters, a lot of these characters that are not Miguel, right? That's not the way they mean to say it, but it is what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And having Miles be like, that's not how it's going to work.
Bro, look how Spider-Man India is the dopest dude, right? That dude, he's like the only Spider-Man who's not depressed. He has a great life. He wakes up and he doesn't work out because he doesn't want to get too big. Like that dude lives a perfect life, and he gets to keep the captain. Hell no, Miguel would never allow it. That guy, the captain's gotta die. Everyone's gotta live my sad life because that's how reality has to be, right? No, buddy. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
They have to figure out what's causing that hole, because if Miguel's right, then yeah, Miles would have to. But also Miles is what they changed in the story is what's so interesting is how they changed Miles' backstory a little bit to be that he was never supposed to be Spider-Man, and it's because he was bit that his Peter Parker died.
Well, what I love about it is that like they didn't change his backstory; they just expanded on it, right? Because the spider always came from another dimension, and we knew that. Mm-hmm. We knew that in the first one, that it didn't come from his home dimension because it glitched. Yeah. And I think that was so smart to take that as a tool and a cue to say, well, the problem that they have is that he wasn't supposed to be bit by that spider. And that was such a smart like way to reverse around on all of this and make Miles the anomaly. And real quick to your point about the hole in India, for Spider-Man India, Miguel gets to conveniently say that like fits his narrative, right? But we know that hole it started because the spot created a hole with the collider, and then it made the building fall, and the hole fell with the building.
Yep.
So that collider hole was in the building and went down. It's not because of what Miles did, not in the saving sense, right? Like that's not what's ruining that world right now. So I do think like there's room to like play with like Miguel has created a narrative that he believes is true out of his experience that is not necessarily accurate.
Yeah. While we're in India, in Mumhattan,
which is beautiful.
This is my favorite section of the movie, specifically once the spider team's in action and they have to stop that giant building from collapsing on that bridge. That is one of the most spectacular. And I didn't mean to use Spider-Man verbiage, but I did.
Do it.
It is one of the most spectacular action scenes I've ever seen, of all them working together, going through buildings, saving people, so much destruction happening. I'm like, Jesus, man, this is a superhero movie.
Something I love about it. Oh, sorry, Ben. Just real fast. It's something I love about it throughout all the time is when they're going to all these other worlds. All the spider characters, like even if they're not agreeing with each other or something's not right in the team composition, the moment innocents are in danger, they're all on it. It's all part of who they are.
Yep.
Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say to Ryan, I was like, I'll use Spider-Man verbiage. It's amazing.
It's all
this whole movie is amazing. It's spectacular. It's superior. I'll do
it
all day.
It's friendly neighborhood. Damn it, I fucked it.
It's true.
No, it is.
It's true.
One of the things I wanted to are we done on this point, or are we moving on, or are we want to stick with this point?
Go across the Spider-Verse, Ben. Do
where you want to go.
No,
do what you want to do.
No, because one of the things I really wanted to talk about this movie is how well the background artists and artists in general make every single universe different. How you are in a different universe, be it a color palette, the way the buildings are drawn, the backgrounds are drawn, the characters are drawn. Mag mentioned earlier about how where did it go? Oh yeah, this one where he said top anime movie of the year for me. Certain spider characters are animated in different ways. Spider-Punk, when the entire time Spider-Punk is on screen, he is 100%, he is in it, he's Punk, he's different every single time. His art style is different. He's like those cutout things you cut out of a newspaper and slap it on something else. It's amazing how Ben, I got
a fun little fact for you. Spider-Punk's art style is constantly changing because he doesn't believe in consistency.
There you go.
And I noticed that. I noticed that because when he shows up in Nueva York, I was like, "You're animated differently."
No, like he is constantly changing colors mid talking too. He is always changing. It is.
Yeah,
it is
I love it.
It's insane.
It is great. And even I noticed this when Gwen Stacy was forced back to her own world and she confronts her dad, how the background of it's a lot of brush strokes. There's not a lot of detail in it. But because there's not a lot of detail, your focus is on Gwen Stacy and essentially bearing her soul to her dad, and how nothing else in the world matters. It's just Gwen and her father.
Dude, Ben, that is so astute. That is so astute. Like, because it starts in a regular room, and then as Gwen keeps talking, the room around them melts. It's like literally like the paint starts fading away as you focus on the characters. It is some artistic genius, dude.
That and the color changes with the emotions of characters in Gwen's world. I'll say this is true throughout. That like what is the emotionality of whatever character's focusing on? It can be Gwen, but it can also be her dad. It changes the color of what's happening in the room.
Yeah. I mean, besides that, there's another point I wanted to mention earlier.
Real quickly, before you get off of that, I just want to say on Spark's thing, because I know you're moving on, that it's a really great way to interpret that art style from that comic, because putting in emotion, kind of that painterly melting that happens in that discussion. Excellent. I cannot praise it enough.
Yeah. And there was earlier when we were talking about, there's something Brand said about how long it takes us to get to the Spider Society, because we all knew the Spider Society was going to be in the movie. It was in the trailer. It was a big part of the trailer, and I just love how that's not the focal point of the film. I mean, yes, this film is called Across the Spider-Verse. You do go across different Spider-Verses, but that's not the point. The point is Miles. The point is Gwen. And I love how even the beginning of the movie, when we see the different Spider people, how it is cool seeing all these different Spider people, but at the same time, I'm invested in Miles' story. I'm invested in him trying to balance being Spider-Man and talking and living up to his parents' expectations.
I'll be honest, I did a lot of Leo DiCaprio pointing.
I think everyone did. Like, yeah. But when we do finally get to the Spider Society, it's like this grand payoff. But at the same time, it's not just like to me, the writing in this movie is genius. The writing is genius because while it brings in that grand multiversal stuff and it brings in that grand, like, let's bring in as many Spider people as audiences, just as general audiences may or may not know. It doesn't take away from the fact that this is a story about Miles trying to stop the Spot from essentially killing his dad, and Miguel saying, no, this is canon event. It has to happen.
So is the Sinister Six movie ending with Miguel O'Hara taking Adrian Toomes back to the MCU? Because that's what he's doing in this movie.
I absolutely love that they just by sheer like fun of having Shakespearean old school Vulture, they made sense of that Morbius thing happening. Or why would a Vulture show up because of Into the Spider-Verse? And I'm just like, you didn't have to do this, but you did. And I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I love that when they're running through all the various villains that don't belong in their universes, there's an actual rhino. It's like there's a real rhino.
Yeah.
And like we knew the line was there, but I do appreciate the like, don't get me started on Doctor Strange, that nerd from Earth 1999.
Yeah.
Like super fun. Really glad it's there. They really do such a great job with blending all of this multiverse stuff, but keeping the heart of Gwen and Miles and the story that's happening to the two of them at the center of it. They're so good at it. They're so good at not losing focus on what the movie's supposed to be about. And I think like we're just so used to films aiming for the sky with these kinds of Easter eggs and cameo appearances. And usually when they do, they start, even it can still be a good movie. I'm not saying it's a bad movie when they do this, but like we've often had a conversation where we're like, yeah, they reach for the sun and they got
it doesn't feel like
here.
like natural.
Yeah. They stretch themselves a little too far for the Easter egg and that kind of thing. And this is just one where that I just don't feel it ever. I never once felt like this was inappropriate. They shouldn't have done this here. This was a little too much of this, blah, 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 blah. Like we can talk about like the length of scenes and the pacing of things, but the way that they entrenched the use of the multiverse and the different characters never felt like it was out of purpose.
Yeah.
And that's just so impressive on its own. To Ben's point about what he's talking about, like the environments and everything, what a great playground for these animators to be able to test out new things. Like this is, taking the lessons from Spider-Verse, the first one, and going beyond that even further to expand on what is possible in animation. What is possible now that we're willing to bust open those doors and really set things on fire and say like, do it new, do it different, do it wild, do it better. Also, these animators have such mastery of spider people in motion.
Yeah.
They are so crisp and clear.
So many different types.
So many different types. The fact that all these characters move differently. We got our Spider-Man India Privateer, who like the way he moves.
Oh, with the bangles.
Like with the bangles and everything.
Goodness.
Just a totally different movement style. The way he like kicks up his legs compared to Hobie, compared to
Miguel has laser whips,
compared to Miguel, compared to Miles, compared to Gwen, compared to some of our extras like that we see in the side. Like it's so cool that they think about the movement details down to how does this character move. How Jess moves because she's pregnant, because they factor that into who she is. Really smart, really great.
While we're talking about Jess, this is not a negative, but I thought she was going to be in the movie considerably more. I needed more of her because she was cool. I don't think she's in the movie enough.
Issa Rae is great. I think that like
I think she's underutilized.
I think you functionally have to keep her at arm's length because of what's going on between her and Gwen.
Yeah.
And again, like that feels like something where just from like the visuals we're given at the end of the movie, you know that there's more to develop.
Oh
there.
yeah. It'll definitely be more in the second movie.
And it does feel like she kind of has to remain like staunchly the person who stands next to Miguel and says that like, nah, he's right for sure.
Yeah.
I like her moments where she bonds with Gwen.
Yeah, I think she's gonna turncoat in the next movie for sure.
I think the whole thing is gonna turn on Miguel. Like this is the thing, is like all these spider people, like they're bought into the idea right now.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is so smart. Is like I don't think that they don't mean to say that Miles has to go through this because they went through this.
Yeah.
But like that's the mentality they're bringing to it. They're like, yes, this grief is part of being a spider person, and that thus it must exist. And Miles is rightfully standing there and saying, absolutely not. Like if I know I can save my dad, it is my responsibility and my pleasure to be able to go and save my father.
Honestly, this movie has a lot in relation with Loki, believe it or not. Because Loki is an abnormal variant who shouldn't exist. And that whole show is about correcting the timelines and whatnot. So like, I really like that we are able to explore that in different capacities. And like, I love Loki, but like, this is such an emotional movie while still being about 1,000 different Spider-Men. Like it is the sheer willpower of like these creatives are like, you can do something like this. And it can be like this.
But, it's not about what's so brilliant about it. What you just said, which just clicked in me. It's not about 1,000 Spider-Man. It's about Spider-Man. It's about just the concept of being Spider-Man. And in that case, it becomes very singular. So they don't have to balance 1,000 different characters because it is just about the very, like, one of the things that's in Into the Spider-Verse that I while watching it, I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to go more into this in Across the Spider-Verse, which is that it's very lonely being Spider-Man. At least it used to be before everyone was 616. But it's very lonely being Spider-Man. And all these spiders that we meet in the Spider-Verse, they're lonely. They're the only Spider-Man. They're the only Spider-Person.
Each other.
They only have each other. And across the universe takes that and runs with it. Being Spider-Man is a lonely existence, but they're making you. They're saying you have to be lonely. That is your destiny as Spider-Man.
Yeah. Right. And that's the thing, right? Is that that's where Miles is, right? We pick up with Miles, and Miles has no friends. It's been 1 year and 4 months and he has no real friends. He's kind of friends with Genki, but like that's real, like face, like
Genki does not want to be the guy in the chair. This is not the same Genki as the other Genkis we've seen.
It's really surface level stuff. And I think you mean Ned.
Yeah. Same character. Yeah, same character.
They reference it in a line. They know what's up.
Yeah.
But Miles has he's gone like that path that like it's a good story beat where he's allowed himself to become very much more Spider-Man than he is Miles at this point. Like, especially in his personal life, like he's all about being Spider-Man. He's not really about, like, while he is thinking about his future, he's thinking about his future in a very like personal and selfish and Spider-Man related way of like, what's he talking about? He wants to go to Princeton because they're studying dimensional stuff. He wants to find a way to be his friends again.
Yeah.
He's not thinking about like living the life he's living in his world anymore. And he's not thinking about being Miles in that world anymore. And that's like where the story with the parents is so grounding and so strong and so good. And so thematically, it's the whole point of like, that's what his parents are saying to him. That's what this whole universe is saying to him, is like, hey, you got to be lonely. And he's like, whoa. That's not what I wanted. That's not the way I wanted any of this to be ever. And it's so good because it is all of these spider people are eventually going to go, oh, no, it doesn't. Ryan put it very succinctly when we came out of the movie that like you look at the comics right now and they're so constantly like dragging Peter Parker back to the same baseline of Peter Parker has to suffer. Peter Parker has to lose, can't have Mary Jane, can't be happy, can't all these things because it's his responsibility to use his powers. And that always has to come at the sacrifice of things that are personal. And this is very much flying in the face of that and saying like, you are interpreting that phrase wrong. And you have been being spider people around that phrase wrong. And that's what Miles is saying. Miles is saying, I'm different. We all should be different.
Yeah. And there has been some interesting conversations online about how like we just had No Way Home come out, right? And we all like that movie. And that movie is very much you have to be Peter Parker and suffer to be Spider-Man type of thing. And I think both can exist. Mm-hmm. I think you can be Peter Parker and have gone through that. And then the next generation going, I don't have to go through that. I'm not the same as you. I think both can exist. And I think, because I had a friend of mine, like say like, oh, I really hate No Way Home for doing what with May and all that stuff. And I'm like, I respect that. I disagree. I think two things can exist at once. And I think Into the Spider-Verse, like, or Across the Spider-Verse, like really helps define that. And like, that is a true thing that did happen, but it doesn't have to happen for everyone that way. It doesn't have to.
Right. It's kind of like Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? Like just because I have this trauma doesn't mean I should pass it on. And that's what Miles is saying. Like, yeah, you guys went through this. Maybe it's Peter Parker's destiny to go through this, but why is it Miles Morales's?
Absolutely.
Importantly, something that I think is so smart, and I wouldn't be shocked if it comes back around in a textual, very clear way in the next film, is that Miguel is making this argument like you're not supposed to exist. Spider wasn't supposed to bite you, all these things, right?
Yep.
What else does he do, though? He shows all these important moments in Spider-Man lives. One of those moments is Miles holding Aaron's hand when he dies into the Spider-Verse, because the universe readjusted to the fact that Miles is now Spider-Man.
Yes.
So he has that important moment. He is part of the web. You can't say he's not Spider-Man now.
Yeah.
He had the moment.
This is also why it's so good that, again, this is a sequel to an incredible movie where the whole message was anybody can be Spider-Man.
Right.
This is the Last Jedi situation of literally like, it doesn't matter who you're related to. Like, you're not even Peter Parker. Like, the spider wasn't meant for you. You can still be good enough to be Spider-Man.
And
like, that is so important.
And he's trying to, and Miguel's also trying to add, because you're right, like he lost his uncle. That's one of the canon events. You lose your uncle, and then you lose the captain. And so like one of the things that was so interesting about Miles being included there is that Miguel already played his hand, right? Like he already showed Miles that he is part of the web, but then later he's trying to get into Miles's head by telling him the spider wasn't supposed to bite you. Your Peter died because you were bitten. He is trying to give Miles that burden to live with because he believes that is the only way to win.
Right.
Because all Miguel knows is suffering, unfortunately.
Right. And he aligns that like that this is not the way the thing is supposed to be, but he doesn't actually like it doesn't matter. But like in wider universe rules, right? Like Miguel doesn't know exactly how things are supposed to work. That spider from Earth 42 might have been meant to bite this Miles. That can be how things are meant to be, so that there is a world where there is no Spider-Man. Like that can be the through line. And so I think it's very smart that it's like showing you there are holes in what Miguel's doing. So like it's not just driven from a fact that like we love Miles and we love Miles' dad, and that's why Miles is right. Yeah. There's clear factual reasons of why like Miles should be standing against this, and why the Spider people are probably going to come around on it as well.
And dude, like when Miles is when Miguel is chasing Miles, and this is the 15-year-old kid, right? This is a 15-year-old teenager. Miguel is slamming this kid's head into that train.
Oh, yeah.
And he's whispering the meanest, like, you are nothing. You do not deserve to. I'm just like, dude, this is so personal right now.
I really love at the beginning of the movie when we're in Gwen's world and he's got the Vulture and he's about to bite him. And then he puts his mask back on, the helicopter's
the
like,
vampire stuff,
hey, you got to get back down to the ground and calm down. And he's like, I'm a good guy. And it's like, you don't look like one.
I'll bring it around for the end. But y'all, it's very interesting that we have vampire shit that they never address in this movie. It is very incredibly interesting.
Someone does call him vampiric at one point.
Yeah.
Like when Gwen tells Miles he's like a vampire.
Yeah.
And we see him doing the injection.
Yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's not a normal Miguel O'Hara thing.
No.
That'll be fun, spicy stuff in the next movie.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about the Spot very much.
I love Jason Schwartzman.
I really love how they animate the Spot. I really love his banter with Miles. I think it's some of the most fun in the movie. And when he's like, so what is this? A suit or skin? It's like, unfortunately for both of us, it's skin.
This is my skin. Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is really funny. And I adore that his origin story is my favorite joke from the first movie in CBM history, which is he took a bagel.
Yeah.
He's the guy who got hit by the bagel. Man.
He got hit by the bagel, and he was like apparently deeply involved in the collider and everything. That's all cool. What I love about it is that they do such a good job of like putting you on Miles' level of like this guy
ramping up how bad he
this
becomes.
guy is a joke, and then like how serious it gets and how quickly. Yeah.
Not only that, I just love the design of the Spot and also how they draw him, because you could still see the outline lines of hit, because he's not like completely animated. It's not just the spots. I mean, like the blue sketch lines of like this of the skeleton, of like when artists like they try to build like a character's physique. You still see those lines, but also the skeleton. But also, what I love is like later on in the movie, like when this like obviously the Spot is an antagonistic force. I would argue that Miguel is the real antagonist, because between Act 2 and 3, he's like actively trying to screw over Miles. But what also I love is how the Spot goes from someone who was a joke, who was like, yeah, of course this guy is nothing. I mean, yeah, he has interesting power, but he can't even control it, to absolutely freaking terrifying. Like when there is just something about just simple line art with characters. There's no discerning features. Just simple. It looks like a bunch of scribbles. That just is so unsettling to me, especially when it's applied to a villain who can warp and destroy reality.
I just realized what the design of the spot reminded me of. Sparkz. The anti-spiral.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much that kind of similar line work, right?
Yeah, it's not dissimilar. I think what's been more interesting is a lot of people pointing out, and I think rightly so, that when he takes on the full, like, mostly black look that he has near the end of the film,
Super spot,
he looks very emblematic of Miles' graffiti from the first film. Where he put his silhouette in the middle of No Expectations, and that being like a visual connection between the two. I think that there is something to that, but you're right. Like there is an anti-spiral. Null has recently been on my mind, so like some kind of Null's reference with the spiral stuff as well. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I don't think they're doing anything with that to do with Null at all. But using spiral art is always kind of cool. It's always kind of indicative of like. Something kind of getting out of control. And I really, really like it. What I think is so wonderful about Jason Schwartzman is he's so good at playing the comedic side of the spot and playing the sinister side, and like and how that evolves over the course of the film. I really love when we get some of my favorite stuff with him is when we're in India, because you get this section of him getting chewed out for being like, "Don't eat, pray, love me, man," and he's like, "No, I didn't mean it like that."
Yeah. Don't eat, pray,
I love chai tea. No.
You're saying TP.
And him being like that, but at the same time, like, he's so focused on Miles, and it's like they're like, "Which Spider-Man do you mean?" And he's like, "Yeah, him," and takes Miles down and is giving him a lot of good hits. I think that's really, really solid. This very personal dynamic between them. It's going to be really interesting to see. I'm very the way they've set the spot up. This is kind of like our comic too, with like some of the most valuable things. No Way Home does it of Spider-Man is like seeing something inside the villains and recognizing it and recognizing how to like reach them and connect to them. And like they've got good setup with the spot for Miles to do that, for him to like what he really wants is for Miles to just take him seriously. And what he did and take responsibility for it. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what Miles is just rolling off his shoulder.
You go to break.
This is going to sound really weird, but because the spot is a much more interesting villain at this point in this movie, but like he kind of feels a little bit like Gwen's bodega bandit, who was this character that would rob bodegas, and all he wanted was Gwen to take him seriously as a supervillain.
He's the shocker.
He's the shocker. So like I really like that idea.
I do too.
That is the kind of motivation for this villain. Like, I just acknowledge me.
Yeah. Well, and I what I liked even more than it was this idea of like their lives being so deeply intertwined, because it wasn't just the collider thing, that the collider is what created him. He also is the one who brought the spider there.
Yeah.
And I think that was really smart too.
I created you, you created me.
I'm the one who brought the spider out. You are who you are because of me, and I am who I am because of you. And like in a way where like neither one was intentional.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they are intertwined in that way. It was a really cool and organic way to do it. I think the way they came back around on the Earth 42 and the spider and all that stuff was really, really smart. Just really sharp at seeing the opportunity you had that was left there from the first film and saying yes and to it, rather than like totally pulling out new directions and that kind of thing. Like, this all feels like it was so absolutely baked in the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it was or wasn't, like, it doesn't matter. It feels like it was always there.
You brought up Earth 42, and I want to say we can talk about the animation being so good, and it is. One of the things that I really love about the animation is that in Earth 42, the animation is different, but it's hiding that it's different up until the reveal. And because like if you're not really paying attention, it does look like Miles's universe, because it's shrouded in this darkness.
The colors gave it away for me.
I hear you. I feel like maybe if we weren't cutting between
I'm not saying that I was fooled by it. I was just saying that I really like it as a visual style, because there is a tell that is the outside colors are very different. Miles' street in 1610 is lit up with this nice orange light, whereas 42 is not.
I didn't mean to suggest that I thought you were fooled by it. I was just saying that I think the way that it is so clear, I think like I don't think the movie's trying to trick you or hide it, I would argue, because I think it is very clear because it's cutting between Miguel O'Hara and the others being in Miles' world and then cutting to Miles there. And it's like, well, that's very clearly not the same place. That is not the same city. And like, I think I wish they hadn't drawn out the reveal that he's in the wrong world for quite as long.
Yeah.
Personally,
Yeah.
I think if there is a beat that doesn't totally work for me, it was him confessing to his mom, because I knew from the jump that it like long before that it wasn't his mom. Like I knew from the moment that he gets scanned, that it's not going to be his mom.
Yeah,
and
because it tells you.
And I think that scene is maybe goes a little long for the emotional like confession that's supposed to be for him before he realizes I would have had him glitch partway through or something so that he knows very quickly that he's in the wrong place. Something else like looking around the room for him or something, because I don't think the audience is supposed to be fooled, or if they were, then I wouldn't have shown Earth 42 when he got scanned. If you hide that number, then I think the visual cues, everything after that leaves the audience to figure it out when they want to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone is supposed to be fooled, except for Miles. That's the point I was trying to make, that I wanted to just kind of like squash right now and make very clear. It's for Miles, because Miles, the animation style of the world is different from 1610, but it's being hidden from Miles and therefore slightly from us. We already know it's the wrong world. We see it scanned to 42. It's different color palette. We know it is. The audience is not supposed to be fooled here, but Miles is. And I find that to be such a smart choice that the movie, at least for the most part, won us in Miles's head, which is why it does that. I just think it's interesting.
No, I agree with you. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm trying to say is that the confession to the mom goes too long because of that. Because I don't think the audience is supposed to be tricked. That is too long of a scene.
I was about to add that I do agree with that. That's part of the pacing issues that I had. Yeah. I was not saying that was the point you were making. I was just making clear my point because I felt I hadn't. Okay. So let's move on.
What I really like about that section is when Miles is swinging to what he thinks is his home. And what's going through his mind is happening in the environment, music video style, right? Mm-hmm. The train following away, there are tentacles from Liv coming after him.
Oh, it's so good.
All this kind of stuff. Very, very good. Very much like, accentuating Miles' headspace. Also a crafty way to kind of hide what's maybe going on with the world. Again, if you wanted to trick the audience, which I don't think that was the goal. But like it makes it more visually dynamic what we're getting expressed from Miles' perspective.
It was nice seeing those tubes, because like I miss Liv. I hope she shows up in the next one. Superior,
for sure.
Superior Liv.
That's so interesting. The first film, I always forget that the first film introduces a Dr. Octopus for Gwen Stacy that was never adapted into the comics.
Right. Yeah. You just get the metal arm at one point.
Yeah. Gwen Stacy never had an octopus.
We haven't talked about Peter B. Parker.
No. Love him.
I was surprised that he comes in so late. Good for him. Good for it. But I was surprised.
I also wanted more of him. Not that it's bad. It's like, oh man, he's definitely gonna be more in the next movie. But I wanted him more.
Also, Mayday is a treasure.
Oh my god.
I absolutely adore her. I will take a bullet for that child.
Interesting, different Mary Jane voice actor back in his world, not Zoe Kravitz back this time as Mary Jane, different actor.
Okay.
But I wanted to make a quick note of that. What I want to say, Peter B. Parker really liked the amount. Frankly, I think he's in the movie the right amount for this movie. Yeah. Makes perfect sense. He's in it and important for the amount that he's supposed to be. I really, really love his beat when he's coming after Miles. He's like, I have her because of you.
Yeah.
I have her because I wanted her to be like you, Miles, because I think you're awesome.
Yeah.
And like all
I like being around you.
Yeah, so good. I think that it really works as this evolution of the character we met into the Spider-Verse.
And it makes the betrayal hurt so bad that him and both betrayed him.
That they didn't. Yeah. But what I also want to say to that is I'm glad they didn't try to push. Again, this is them really knowing like what's the story about, that they didn't try to push Noir or Peter Porker into this movie. They appear at the very end, which makes sense. Like, Gwen's getting the people who care about Miles back. And people have rightly pointed out that like, who knows where Peter Porker necessarily would have landed, but Noir 100% would have been on Miles' side. Not agreed with this whole establishment of suffering thing.
Yeah.
Penny has a seminal part in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, she's in a new mech, which looks really cool, but she says she has this kind of like the last gut punch to Miles in that big kind of like confrontation scene.
Yeah, that she's part of it as well. And I think that was the right amount to leave her in it too. Again, knowing we are getting more of those characters in the next one.
Yeah.
But I think they were very, very good at selecting like who needs to be here for how long that is relevant to the story we're telling in this movie. And I think they were very, very smart about how they chose where the Into the Spider-Verse characters returned.
Yeah, it's really cool that we're getting the team back together, but also now we have like Team Miguel, who is Jess and Ben Reilly.
Well, and we have like the new members like Hobie and Privateer. Who's like on Miles' side because Miles is responsible for saving the captain in his world. So like this God, I love Hobie. What I love about Hobie is that Hobie as Spider-Punk and played by Daniel Kaluuya, who's doing an incredible job. He is supposed to be like full-blown punk anti-establishment. It's just as you were saying, like in the comic, it's kind of watered down. These are a bunch of people who are putting like Black Lives Matter stickers on Miles' backpack and everything. He's going to be the socialist that he, like anarchist that he is, where he's going to say like the system is terrible and the system's always terrible and don't trust it. And so I'm so glad that Hobie from like beat one, once like he's connecting with Miles and like he tells him like you got to use the palms, and that he gives him the indication on that he's like, yeah, don't trust this. Yeah, don't trust this, man.
I love his line. He's got this line, don't enlist until you know what war you're fighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
As he's like, I quit. Bye.
And it's a great, and it's honestly such a good setup because Hobie's set up as like this guy in Miles' mind, and as the audience perspective of like being with Miles, this competition guy for like a love triangle with Gwen. And that's what like Miles is anticipating with this guy. And Hobie's just like, dude, I'm telling you, you don't want in. Like, I know what they think of you and you don't want it. So be ready to
also
bounce.
How do you get cooler when you take your mask off?
Yeah.
I love the line.
And again, his art also exceptional.
I love the line where Miguel's like, I don't even know what to do with you. I'm not even here, bub.
Yeah.
I love it when he says, I don't have a Scooby-Doo, which is like Cockney slang for I don't have a clue.
Oh, I love how it translates as Cockney.
Yeah. And then of course, like when Mayday is like, oh, she took a grab, he's holding Mayday and goes, take a grab, establishment. Respect.
Yeah.
And she's doing shit. And he's like, little anarchist. I'm like,
and Hobie is just one of the best additions to Spider.
Yes.
I knew we were getting Spider-Punk, but just the fact, even when he's like doing his whole little backstory, he's like, I'm not going to reveal to you my secret identity. And then he takes the mask off. I just love how Miles is like, how are you even cooler? He's like,
I really love how they incorporate him into the story and what it means for Miles' inclusion, to go off of what Sparkz was saying of every spider in this movie is very thoughtfully picked for the role that it plays in Miles. But it got me, man. I got me so hyped at the end when I knew it was ending. When we see all the Gwen's team now, and there was Noir and there was Porker, and I'm like, baby, we're getting the team back together.
Absolutely,
yeah.
It's hype. It's a good hype moment.
It's a really good team.
Because
who's the other the Avatar girl is also there. I forget her name.
Spider-Bite.
Spider-Bite.
She's the
right, and she's also
the computer
jumping in on the team, and I'm really happy about that. Yeah,
Penny is there with them, and like it's such a cool moment because like Nicolas Cage said like, oh no, I'm not in Across the Spider-Verse. I didn't return as Noir, and like, baby, I'm so excited to hear you back for Beyond.
Yeah, I was worried. I didn't know if he would be in the next one or not, but like him not being in this one, I wasn't totally bummed out. But like, he is in that next one for sure now. And I'm like, oh, they knew what they were doing. They had to save the best for last, baby. Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So excited. Like, I cannot wait to see that kind of fight.
And the final nugget of this movie in Earth 42, Little Prowler. Oh my God. I love it. I love his design. Miles looks like a little jerk.
That was the only time. That was one of the few times. That's kind of where I can pinpoint like where we're maybe dragging this all along, because like the audience knows this is Miles. There's no one in the audience who doesn't know that this little Prowler is Miles.
Yeah.
But they do take their sweet time revealing it.
That's why I feel, again, like the last 20 minutes, like I like everything that happens, but I just feel like they kind of extend everything out just a little bit. I'm like, I don't know how you cut it, but
I also think that like once you are done doing the like Miles and Gwen are in the same room in different worlds.
Yes.
Then you only focus on Miles, and then you only focus on Gwen.
Yeah.
And so you leave Miles hanging on the bag, and you leave Gwen gathering the team, and you stop cutting between the two. And I think that made it feel longer because we kept like jumping back and forth after that beat. And I think it should have just been, here's this beat, done.
Yeah.
And I think that is maybe just a slight misstep in the the way they built the tension, because like we jump back and forth because of Miles getting knocked out and things like that.
Yeah.
I want to shout out that we have a new voice actor for Miles, that is Jarrell Jerome, not Shamik Moore.
Oh, it wasn't
voicing
him.
No,
I just assumed it was him.
He is voicing Miles G. Morales, the Prowler.
That's awesome.
For Earth 42.
That's cool. When Aaron walked in, like I saw it coming, but like it's still an awesome reveal, dude. Like it is so sick. And like, Uncle, I missed you. And like he hands money to his mom, like, we're still family. And I'm like, no, Jeff. Oh no,
Yeah,
Jeff, no.
Right.
You know, it's so messed up that Miguel talks about like losing captains as like a thing that's supposed to happen when like Gwen's Uncle Ben moment is losing Peter, and it's such a messed up moment to have Miguel telling Miles, you were never supposed to be Spider-Man. Like, what does that mean for Gwen too? Obviously Gwen is meant to be the spider of her universe, but she's not a Peter Parker. She's the only Gwen Stacy in the entire multiverse who became Spider-Woman.
Yeah.
Right.
So like such an interesting, like, man, F you, Miguel.
And again, I can't get over the fact that Miguel, this whole thing kind of started with him like taking the body of another dead Spider-Man. Like the foundation is rotten, y'all. We got to burn the whole thing to the ground.
Something.
Oh, I love.
think, like,
sorry. Quickly, I love her new costume.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. I love the over the fingerless gloves, with the pink spider with the pink webbing. Love it. Thought it was really cool.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like all the costume designs and the new ones that we get in this one.
Chris Anka, you're the best. You're the best in the West.
Nope, it's gone.
Gone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I feel bad now.
No, it happens. He'll come back.
Happens to them all.
He'll come back.
Happens
around.
to every Peter Parker.
It's that I think that there's like too strong a language played on the captain thing, because I feel like it's just like there's supposed to be another like loss, you know, like of that. It gets shown through the captains, but like we know that's not always like you know that's not always part of the story. Like you could argue that like the captain lost for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man isn't the captain, it's Harry, right? Like it's not going to be that same consistent, like it's the captain lost.
Yeah.
But we get really married to that language, and I don't think that was necessarily supposed to be the point, but I get it because like it's a cleaner way to make the connection between Captain Stacy, Captain.
I'll tell you what,
Morales,
like I agree with you, but like I think someone actually brought this up, and like that can actually be a plot point for the next movie of like you're not even consistent with your own rules.
Right.
Like you're governing the universe in what you think is right, and you're not even consistent with your own self.
And we pointed out that like Miguel O'Hara's whole thing is based around like things that don't add up if you really look at it.
And we talk, Yuri Lowenthal is back as PS4 Spider-Man, and like we see him. His losing the captain moment, right, was Jefferson Davis, but Miles's losing his uncle moment is Jefferson Davis. So like even like it's not consistent throughout all the worlds. This isn't always meant to happen in every world. We've seen
Miguel
it already.
Miguel will make it work so everybody does suffer just because that's what he thinks everyone should do.
He is Jefferson Morales as of this film, no longer Jefferson Davis.
Oh, I didn't notice they changed his name.
They did that on purpose because this happened in the comics too.
Yes.
And it's because Jefferson Davis is not. He's a
Confederate leader in the Civil War.
Yeah. And it's not a good name for a black man.
Yeah, it was one of the Bendis's oopsies.
So that happened in comics canon. They also did it in this movie where they changed it. So he's Captain Morales. You'll see his badge says Morales now.
Jefferson's. Oh, I haven't read the original Miles Morales comics in a long time, but he was not in the picture. His dad initially. That was changed when Secret Wars happened, right?
Sparkz? I want to know in the Ultimate Universe. Are you talking in the Ultimate Universe?
Yeah.
Venom kills his father.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
In the Ultimate Universe, Venom killed his dad.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's something that they changed in the comics at a certain point, was that, was pointed out, and they were like, okay, so in the comic story, like Jefferson says that like my dad was a terrible person.
He wants
to
get
I've changed my name to his wife's because I don't want to carry that.
I don't want my son to have my father's legacy.
That's why I don't want my son to have it either. And so that is changed in the Spider-Verse film now too. He's not Jefferson Davis, he is now Jefferson Morales. Which I thought was a very thoughtful thing, where they took the lesson as well from what people were talking about. That was a long time ago that they were making that movie. Like that was 2016, the movie was being developed. So like they heard the responses and they were like, absolutely, let's change.
Also,
that.
hey, if I was married to Rio Morales, that lady is like the coolest lady on the planet. Like, I'll take her name, no problem.
So I definitely want to highlight, like, for me, watching the trailer, I think it was the first trailer for this movie, and it's the one where we're getting Rhea's conversation and speech over the music and over some of the visuals from Across the Spider-Verse. And I definitely got in that moment the vibes of like Jefferson's dying in this movie.
Yes.
And I've been afraid of that because to me, I really like Brian Tyree Henry's performance. I really like Jefferson Davis. It's one of my problems with the Spider-Man game before the Miles Morales game was made that Jefferson died.
Yes.
And so I was really hoping that the Spider-Verse films wouldn't go there. Sitting in the theater today and then having it be that moment not be related to that at all, which really emotionally got me because like, whew, that made me cry. But then knowing that the movie is about Miles saying actively, my dad doesn't have to die. That gives me a lot of hope and like,
yeah,
really wonderful. Like we can have the storytelling where he's got his dad and his mom, and we don't have to do that to Miles. That doesn't have to be the way this goes. And I'm really, really excited that not only are they seeming to steer away from that, but that's actively a story point of saying that shouldn't have to happen for Spider-Man stories to work. This shouldn't have to be a thing. And Absolutely. So like, I'm really, really psyched that that's the direction we went. I really like all of the parent stuff, how they're trying to connect to Miles. We didn't touch on it a lot because there's a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
But the bit where Miles is as Spider-Man trying to connect with Jefferson in a way that he can't right now as Miles because he's
how's your son doing?
Really great scene. Brian Tyree Henry is killing it. I love that Rhea gets so much more as his mom in this. I think she's excellent.
I love, again, like just like the first movie, like there's so much the Spanish being spoken, and like they don't feel the need to put subtitles on for us whiteys, and I just like, that's fine. Like, I think that's awesome.
Can't wait for the subtitles to say speaking native language.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's so funny. I'm so excited, man.
To that point.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that they had Rhea give a strong definition of like, you're an immigrant struggling in this way. Puerto Rico is part of America.
Yeah,
and like, I'm really glad that they hammered that.
You're all struggling. You know, I'm a cop. Like, I'm like, you know, we live in a decent house. Like, you're all struggling. What's your story?
We can afford an apartment in Brooklyn. I don't think.
I'm about to be captain next week.
That was really charming. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love when he's getting the cakes and he gets there and what does the cake say?
I'm not proud.
I'm not proud.
Or even when he's arguing with his parents and she's like, "Mom doesn't even have a driver's license. She doesn't need to. We live in New York and we'll never leave."
Yeah.
And what I love about this movie is like this is a really funny movie. Like, I forget, like that first one's really, but there's a lot of great comedy. Like Lord Miller or comedic geniuses, but like there's like you cry, like I cry too. Like there's so much good drama. Like in the middle of like their big barbecue, they have a fight, and once Miles says whatever. Dude, I was a teenager. They used to say whatever to his mom, and boy, howdy, does she not like it. Yeah. So the second he said whatever, I'm like, Miles, my God.
I said the same thing. I was
whatever.
Like,
yeah. It's so real.
Yeah, I'm like, ooh, that got flashbacks from whenever my parents were yelling at my brother. I was like, ooh,
2 months.
Good.
I definitely had that moment. I definitely had that moment where like the parent moment, not even the parent moment, like the bystander moment where you're like in the moment. And she's like, whatever. And you're like, oh boy.
So just walk it back. Real quick.
Walk it back. Just back it up. Back it up.
The poor DJ is like trying to make the music louder so no one else can hear. He's like,
man, I don't generally, because at this point in our lives, like movies come out on VOD so fast, but like there is so much visual splendor and like so much fun and love in this movie. Like I really do want to see it on the big screen again, just because like no matter how nice my 4K TV is, like it will never beat like a big screen. And like I can never get this experience again unless it's just re-shown in theaters in a year or whatever. So like I don't want to wait for the next Spider-Verse movie. Like I read like 20 Spider-Man comics this weekend. Like I'm Jones for Spider-Man.
Yeah, I want to see it again. You know, it's so solid. The emotionality is really good. I think the one other thing that we haven't so much. The one other thing I want to spotlight is Miles has a very excellent montage of like, let me catch you up to speed. And I got a mustache, made another apology.
His YouTube apologies. Yeah.
Hey, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, I read a 2099 comic, and Lila, the digital lady that was helping Miguel, that's a thing from the comics from the 90s too. So like that's cool. You know, they obviously did their research and all this stuff.
One other thing I pointed out to Ryan when we were talking about it off air is that I was really hoping going into this movie that when they did because I expected expected there to be a little bit of like the reference to the story that's happened before for the characters. So when they throw the comics back down, it wasn't a new pile; it was on top of the pile from Into the Spider-Verse. And I really, really like that.
Yeah,
me too.
Love it.
Okay, shall we rate it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's gonna be this is gonna be another one of those Andors, baby. Got a feeling.
Ben.
10 out of 10. Absolutely perfect. As of this moment in time, the best Spider-Man film ever made. Of course, Beyond hasn't come out yet. That might change. But if Beyond is just as good as Across and Into, the Spider-Verse films could be the best Spider-Man trilogy ever. Hands down, no discussion, no debate. It is by far the most emotional, most beautifully made animation. If these films, while other animated films are making great impacts, I feel like this one is going to continue and make an even greater impact in the animation world and get more people to be like, animation is not just for kids. Yes, this is a comic movie. Yes, this is made for families. When I was in my theater, I had a lot of kids around me, but the stories that are told in these films, the stories that are the way that it's being portrayed so that everyone can enjoy it. You don't have to be a Spider-Man fan to love these movies. 10 out of 10, hands down, the best Spider-Man film made up to this point in time.
Ryan?
Yeah, it's absolutely a 10 out of 10. If I could, I would give it 11 out of 10. Like truly, it's like, again, it's like so much effort was made. It was put in this movie, and there's not a single frame of like, we shouldn't work this hard today. Like every single day, like these guys put their whole ass into it, and it's like their whole ass. Not a cheek was left out. This is already like, I wasn't worried about it making a lot of money, but like a big movie like this, I wanted to succeed, and it is the biggest like opening weekend of the year so far. I think next to Mario, and I'm just like, that's incredible.
I'm really happy to see that because I had expected that Into the Spider-Verse's popularity only grew after it left theaters because the theater box office wasn't great for Into the Spider-Verse. It was respectable, but it wasn't great. And what we're seeing with Across the Spider-Verse is that very thing happened. People were watching Into the Spider-Verse and now have come to Across the Spider-Verse and it's making even more money. I love it.
And we're a year or less away from the next one. So like they're just spit polishing that thing, baby. And like we're gonna I have no doubt it's gonna be good.
March, I think right now.
June.
That's crazy.
June.
I just looked it up.
Okay.
Well, exactly 1 year from now. It's still 10 out of 10. Like I actually might try to see this again.
Yeah.
It is actually exactly a year from today.
Hell yeah.
Sparkz?
10 out of 10. Easily. So hands down. 100%. We talked about it as long as we could, and I'm sure there's more I could have dug out, but like I think we covered a really good round of it. It's impressive because of how strong its thematic and emotional story is at its heart. What it's saying is really great. What it's saying about Spider-Man as a moniker, as a character, as an ideal hero is so strong. I really like it. I really like what it sets up. It's visually stunning. Beyond what the first one did, it is opening new doors in animation once again. It's just blowing us away. The fact that it can do everything it did and just somehow take what Into the Spider-Verse gave it and just keep on pushing, keep on elevating. Like, it's so impressive. How could it not be? How could it not be? 10 out of 10.
Real quick before you go, Brandon. And it's like, again, after reading Amazing Spider-Man 26 this week and just seeing just like the disarray that character is in right now, I'm just like, man, like this movie, it's just like, it is like a direct message of like, why do we have to do it this way? Why do we have to just kill people to sell comics, to make Peter, like it's truly incredible that these came out the same week that Amazing Spider-Man 26 and this came out, because it's like a direct, like obviously this movie was made years ago, but it's just so funny how the world works that way. I just like this is a really important movie, not just for animation, but for like Spider-Man in this current pop culture world. And I hope this movie has ramifications for the comics, because like, boy howdy, if there's any synergy we need, it's freaking Miles in Spider-Man in the comics.
And for representation.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I really love this movie. I think it's gorgeous. I really love the stuff they do with Gwen Stacy. What that pacing issue that I mentioned up top is a factor for me, more so than I wish, which is why I wanted to see it a second time, see if that smoothed over. But right now, because I don't like it as much as the first one, which is a 10 out of 10 for me, this one is a 9.5.
Sure. That's all perfect. That's totally cool. I love it.
Okay. Shall we go into our book club then?